what I am clear on is this evening. I'm clear that an education is supposed to be an asset and not a liability to a child's future. I welcome you tonight to listen, to lean in, to write your questions, and to hold in mind not just your presence, but to think about children.
As we move forward, we ask that you give us the faith of Martin, the strength of Malcolm, the truth of Sojourner, the heart of Harriet, the depth of Du Bois, the fight of Frederick, the resilience of Rosa, the words of Maya, the hope of Barack. These are the shoulders upon which we stand, and we know that the same power that worked in and through them is the same power working in and through us as we work to do what you are calling us to do.
And once the waters were disturbed, the first who arrived in the pool first would be healed. We know in our communities that oftentimes when the waters are troubled, we are the last to make it to the pool. Night begins the ripple effect. Tonight we begin to trouble the waters.
I was born during World War II to a woman who had been the daughter of a sharecropper in eastern North Carolina. I never thought in America we would ever see a time like this again. This is not this. It's not even like the 60s, not even like the 40s. To me, this feels like the period right after, I could say, the Great Emancipation, which was followed by the Reconstruction Act, which was thoroughly dismantled as quickly as they could dismantle it. The time is now. This is an ecclesiastical moment. Ecclesiastes in the book in the Bible tells us this is the time for everything under the sun. This is the time for righteous people to stand together, to bond together, to bring about the changes that God would intend for all of us. Amen, amen, amen.
It is a joy to be here today as we reignite a fight for justice, and we reignite what is really this ongoing revolution in this country that has not really been won. We're still wrestling with so many of the same problems that King and a litany of other leaders gathered on those steps in the scorching heat and demanded of its nation. Of those 10 demands in that 1963 march, the first had to do with guaranteeing adequate, integrated education. And the third was the demand to desegregate all schools within that year. And here we are these years later, these 6 decades later, that we are in this liberal state, one of the wealthiest states in the country. A state more wealthy than many nations. And we're having to have conversations about how children don't have to be trapped in airtight pockets of poverty and racial exclusion. And we know that we're here to engage segregation in schools, not because of choices that people decided they were going to make on where they would live and where they would school their children, but it is by design. Policy has designed segregation in our schools. Political inaction has maintained segregation in our schools. And political cowardice is currently now making sure that no change will happen and that children will spend more decades in communities and schools that look more like prison preparatory academies than they actually do sanctuaries of learning and living and loving and growing. We are here today because even though we can boast being number 1 in education outcomes, we still must stare in the moral mirror and see how we can be number 6 in segregation for Black students and number 7 for segregation in Latinx for Latinx students. Think about Montclair. You can think about South Plainfield. Think about Woodbridge Township. Think about Morris Township. These are places that show us that it is possible to have integrated schools that offer an adequate education. They want us to believe it's not possible, but it's already happening. This is not simply about diversity. This is about opportunity. This is about power. This is about us being able to determine the quality of democracy that we will have.
One bill establishes, as was mentioned earlier, the Office of Desegregation, sponsored by both of these wonderful legislators that we have here today. As a matter of fact, they are champions of this thought to create this office. The other bill has to do, again, with establishing a school funding evaluation task force. We want to ask these distinguished individuals, Senator Cryan and Assemblywoman Mala Jacey, will you support, will you push forth these bills?
If you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. And that's not acceptable. And so you have my assurances that along with Senator Cryan, and I've already spoken with the chair of the Ed Committee in the Assembly, and she has committed to posting the bills that we need in September when we come back. So thank you very much.
And just as A. Philip Randolph, Bayard Rustin met in December of '61 to plan for August of 1963, we will reconvene. And we will have these discussions. We will gather momentum in Essex County, Union County, Bergen County, Passaic County. It's time for the North to begin troubling the waters.
As we leave from this place, let our feet move, but our mouth be open, that we shall trouble the waters. Let us be that village that raises up to say, if it's not my child, it still ain't right. Let us come out from our churches, our houses, our places of worship, our places of work, and let the world know, let New Jersey know, from the north, the middle to the south, it just ain't right.